Hello and welcome once again. I'd like to go through some of your comments, and thank you for sending in all your comments. I do try to reply to them all, and where there are points for discussion, include them here. And also your emails with the questions therein. Hopefully I've replied to all of those as best I can. And I don't claim to be any authority on any particular subject, but you can ask me questions about anything, because life is dharma. I will try and relate it, or I usually am coming to it from the perspective, the Pali word sanya, sort of recognition, from a dharma point of view, from living the life as a Buddhist monk. To some extent, of course, secluded from the subject matter you might be referring to, but it all relates to our core issues in life, which are greed, hatred, delusion. In the Pali we have lobha, dosa, moha as the words. There are kilesas, there are defilements, what we're practicing to eradicate, cut off at the root, in order to free us from suffering within this lifetime and ultimately attain to nibbana. Now, a couple of questions. Actually, I'm going to go to the a couple of the most recent, firstly, because I noticed them, and they are two questions which are opposite in their nature in a way. So the first is, being Thai, I find this very disturbing. Buddha is not a showcase or tattoo. So it's a little bit disturbing that you find, I mean, what exactly? Very disturbing. A monk on YouTube, perhaps. Understandable if you're very much involved with your own religion in your Buddhist country. You might find it unusual and not what you're used to see a monk discussing the Dharma in this way. Coming from the West, and having come to Buddhism, originally not through seeing Buddhist monks on YouTube myself, because I too hadn't heard of such a thing at that time, but more lately I've benefited greatly from the many monks offering their reflections on the Dharma via this platform, that is YouTube. So whilst you might not be used to it, I should suggest it's not something to be disturbed about. If you don't like it, you don't watch it. It's done with the utmost respect, hopefully, to our teacher, the Buddha, the Dharma, his teachings, and I am part of an established Sangha whom authorize me or support me in this activity. I'm living in solitude, and by way of returning to the lay people their kind support they offer me each day. I go on Pindapata, traditionally on alms round, and I'm fed, but I'm also supported by way of their general encouragement from people all over the world. I can only offer these reflections back. So this is my way of being able to give dana. I do it for no other reason than that. So, don't be disturbed. When we're disturbed by something, we should steer away from it, if possible. I'm not really sure what you mean by showcase or tattoo. I hope these talks don't come across they're very amateurish, I think. If it wouldn't be what I'd call entertaining. And that leads me to the other question, which is kind of the opposite to that. Well, I will add to that. You say being Thai. Buddhism is not doesn't belong to a country, not even its origin country, originating from India. It's not an Indian religion. In fact, it's not very common in India, that is modern India today. But it is also not, whereas it doesn't have a nationality. So where it becomes the religion of a country, it is just the religion they've happily chosen to practice and have adopted. So being Thai, being Sri Lankan, being Burmese, being American, being French, being Italian, it doesn't mean that there's an exclusive right as to how the Dharma is taught. It is often, I feel, very much my experience of living in Buddhist countries, less so certainly here in Sri Lanka, but I feel that it certainly is as well, I mean, understandably, through the amount of faith in those said Buddhist countries, it's sometimes felt a little bit overprotected and belonging to the nation, belonging to the nationality, rather than to the whole world. And Buddhism, the Buddha taught the whole world. This samsara that we're born into this human realm is open to the Dharma, whether we are in Southeast Asia or Europe or the Americas. It doesn't matter. So I welcome comments, both constructive and critical, from all nations, whether they be Buddhist or not, and from people from all religions. Because if there's one thing that can be said for Buddhism and the Dharma, is that it never suffers through comparison to any other religion. It can very easily stand up against other religions, because there's nothing competitive within it in terms of a belief or worshipping structure. It is the way we live our lives. Now, very often in Buddhist countries, it can become more of a religion in religiosity sense of the word, and seemingly a lot of belief, and it's good, saddha, faith or confidence, is put in devotional practices alone, leaving aside a lot of the practice of meditation. It can be said that also it can be a lot of wisdom development of an intellectual nature, again leaving aside meditation, and even in some senses sila, moral virtue. I've seen a lot of this seemingly like in Catholicism, whereby people think, well, it's okay if I don't keep the 5 precepts as long as I'm giving a lot of money to the temple. To me, that is disturbing, very disturbing. The temples don't need money. They don't need to build things. But you do need to keep your precepts. It's not an alternative. So on that, I'll move to the next point. Source of inspiration. Good to follow. Oh, thank you. Let's move that there a bit. Do you watch the videos you post on YouTube later? Heavens forbid, no. That's perhaps why I'm not so critical about them. Why would I? I know what happens. I know the end. I know the end of the book, so to speak. How do you record your conversations and images? Well, it's very easy. I just have a very cheap smartphone, and like when you take a photograph, guess you do that. Same, but it's just longer. You press record, sit in front of the phone like this and talk. Conversation and images. Done. At the end, I turn it off, and then you can just push another couple of buttons. It's very easy. I found out how to do this by mistake, and I just continued doing it ever since. And you upload the video to YouTube, and they do the rest, or whatever happens, it's just done. It's all automatic. So maybe that will assure the previous commentator that I don't spend my life doing this. It takes up a very short part of my day indeed. Doesn't interfere with my practice, and in fact I know many monks whom don't ever do any dharma talks, or certainly don't do this, whom spend all of their day not practicing. Keeping the precepts, yes. Intellectually learning, yes, but not meditating. Whereas I've got 6 to 9 hours a day for just meditation. I'm also in a country where I don't speak the language, and in a locality where not many need or speak English, so not to the extent where it would be useful for them to come and listen to Dharma from me. They can go and speak to the many monks in the many temples with their questions on Dharma. And that's often the case, say, in Thailand also, or in Myanmar, whereby you have access to the Dharma. So I think it's only fair that I should add to what I said previously, that I do this to share the Dharma. Not as a teacher, but like I said at the outset, but just by way of my experience of practicing what the Buddha taught, with as many people whom are willing and wanting to listen, to hear the Dharma, as possible. And so far it's working quite effectively, otherwise I wouldn't continue doing it. It doesn't cost me anything much, a bit of internet and this bit of equipment, which through your kind donations these costs have been met. Other than that, it's a very simple process. So in answer to your question, quite easily. And can that be integrated into your life as a monk? Well, yes, I think I've answered that just now, haven't I? It's as long as this video lasts, is as long as it takes. Then I push upload and boom, off it goes. Occasionally we might have some technical issues that I might have to spend 20 minutes in one day fiddling around with the phone or something like that. But I never get too involved in such things. Usually problems these days can resolve themselves. It's very, very simple. If it wasn't simple, I wouldn't do it. If it didn't integrate into my life as a monk, then there would be no place for it. It doesn't make it's a short conversation each day, or not even each day, a few days a week. And yeah, you say thank you. So, well, thank you for your comment. Well, one other comment, slightly related, but not exactly, was I noticed, it says, I thought you monks were not supposed to speak. You might not have said it quite in those words, but it's something like that. Well, actually, it's in the Vinaya, which is the Buddha's code of conduct for monks and nuns. We are prohibited from taking vows of silence. The reason being is because we are expected to share the Dharma, and this is one of the purposes of the Sangha. However, not on an evangelical proselytizing type of way. We don't go into the marketplace and stand on a soapbox with a loud hailer saying, hey, convert to Buddhism here, this is what the Buddha taught, you should do this. No, we wait for people to come and ask questions, as you're doing here, make comments that we respond to. Or we are invited to give Dharma talks when we're sufficiently experienced to public gatherings, which are listened to and usually reflect the teachings of the Buddha contained in the Sutta Pitaka. And this is the purpose of the Sangha, or part of one of the reasons or purposes of the Sangha. But we do practice what's called noble silence. So we speak only when it's timely to do so, when it's necessary to do so, and appropriate. Softly where possible, and kindly where possible. Truthfully and always coming from a place of experience. So if we're instructing someone about something or advising someone to do something in a way, it should be in a way we have practiced ourselves, in order that we're not just saying something because it's what we've heard. We have actual experience of what we're suggesting to an other. So these are the sort of 5 fundamental aspects of noble silence. So most of the time we are not talking or have any necessity to speak. We are to refrain from harmful speech, untruthful speech, useless speech, so just jabbering on about the weather or the price of fish or the latest football results is called unuseful speech or idle chit-chat. Pali word, which is a beautiful Pali word for that, is sampapalapa, which is it onomatopoeic? It's poetic, something like that. It sounds like it is. It's talking a lot of nonsense that we just fill out silence with. Monks should not do that. You're correct. We shouldn't speak unnecessarily. But for purposes of communicating with others about the Dharma, speech is a necessity. So a vow of silence would be is forbidden for that reason, because we are reliant on the support of lay people. I'm only here and able to be here today, talking to you now, because I'm supported by lay practitioners of Buddhism, or people watching this channel who might send in small donations, or people each day when I go on alms round Pindapata who put food in my bowl to sustain this existence in order to live this way, dedicating my time to the study of the suttas, the practice and keeping of the Vinaya, that's the code of conduct, and this practice of meditation. That is my life, but it is supported by you, by lay people. Without that, I would be unable to do so. Now, if I went silently off to a cave, never spoke to anyone again, I would not have that the support. Now, on Pindapata, we don't teach. When we're going on alms round, we don't speak, but we are seen. We're seen to be living the brahmacharya life. And especially in Buddhist countries, people know that that is the time we're going out to get that support of food that we need to live each and every day. So I think I spoke a bit more about all of that and requisites yesterday, so I won't go into any more detail, but hopefully that helps. Okay, so this question here, why in that way, why in that style, why in that language, why in that posture? And I'm guessing that's relating to the chanting in the morning, because when I'm sitting here, I'm just talking in English in this normal posture. So the answer to all of these questions is tradition. Now, not tradition for the sake of, as in rites and rituals, so religious practices that are considered as prayer and worship, because we don't have prayer or worship, in that there is not a belief system in Buddhism, but a faith in the teacher whom we pay homage to. So we have and adopt out of tradition postures that are respectful to what is no more than an image of the Buddha, but it isn't an image as in an idol to be worshipped or prayed to, but a representation of the Buddha whom was and has now passed to parinibbana, so died, no longer within this human realm. We are paying homage to the memory, that is, of that teacher, the Dharma, his teachings, and then the Sangha, so his noble disciples that followed him and then have ordained subsequent generations of monks and nuns in the thousands of years since his time to this day we call the Sangha. This too shall pass. So you'll see it is done in different ways. I mean, people will often chant in the English language, and often This is happening more and more, isn't it? I'm going to have to pause it here. Hopefully this time I'll remember to be able to turn it back on again. Carrying on. So it wasn't monkeys, peacocks, snakes, kittens. It was tourists. So they're good for the local economy, but they get lost. And then the dog creates. So we know when someone's coming. Or I know when someone's coming. So so traditionally we use the Pali language because it's the known language throughout the world, throughout Buddhism, throughout the world. In the southern school of Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, we use Pali. In the northern school, Mahayana, they use Sanskrit. But either way, it's a common language. Like in Catholicism, they use often Latin, less so these days, and the Greek Orthodox also have their own languages. In the Torah, for instance, in the Jewish faith, they use Hebrew. It's the old language of the religion of the time that's been carried forth. Now, the usefulness of it is it's common throughout the world. So when I talk about anicca, dukkha, anatta, or I talk about certain aspects of the teachings of Buddha, Sila, Samadhi, the practice of Buddhism, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, for instance, whether I'm teaching or talking about that in London or here in Sri Lanka or in France, people whom are Buddhist practitioners know what I'm talking about, what words I'm using. So when we're chanting, we're not worshipping, we're chanting the teachings of the Buddha. We're reflecting on, for instance, aging, sickness and death, or we're reflecting on the Four Noble Truths. We are going over and over again, repetitively, the teachings of the Buddha, the Dharma, by way of memorizing and really ingraining them in our basic nature. As a practice, and the useful language to do that in, which it was handed down to us by means of, is the Pali language. So that's why that language. But it can easily, and is often done so, you will use your own language, translate those, and it's recommended. Certainly, I'd recommend that you get to understand what you're chanting in your own language before chanting it in Pali or indeed Sanskrit or any other language, because there's no point chanting something you don't know what you don't understand just by rote. It's a worthless exercise, isn't it? So I think that's in that way, why in that style, language. So yeah, I mean, it can really put down to tradition, but in a very wholesome sense, not just because that's the way it's always been done. It has its practical reasons. Okay, so I found a question about a retreat where people would be videotaped to make sure they don't move for 12 hours. Very disturbing. Oh, I found the question about that. Oh, I see, yes, there was a comment about something like that, which I spoke about. That just sounds like abuse and potentially cult-like. I wonder if retreats should only be organised by recognised teachers and monks to avoid this kind of thing happening. So, going back to what we began with, people are free to do what they like. So I don't think one can say, okay, no one's ever allowed to talk about Buddhism unless they are a Buddhist monk of a certain number of years in the robes. I think that's kind of is the case in Thailand. But throughout the world, that's not the case. And but it is important as Buddhist monks that we respect that is the case. And that is, as Buddhist monks, the stance we adopt. We don't go out teaching until we have had so many years experience and permission to do so. But you'll never be able to avoid others, not necessarily in Buddhism, but other religions and other people doing all kinds of things. So when you say, I wonder if it should only be organised by recognised teachers, it is really up to us, or up to you, to look at and check and investigate where it is, what retreat you're going on, who is running it, what their background is, what their experience is, and what they're basing it, their teachings or their practice on. And if they're in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path, in accordance with Buddhism, certainly if they're run by monks or nuns, so in that sense, so they're purely Buddhist retreats, then you know you have the backing and assurance of the Sangha. If they're not, then that's very much up to you. And I mean, I won't comment any further on that, but how it doesn't even necessarily mean, just because an organisation is very large, that it is the right one for you. You could find a very small group locally of very sincere Buddhist practitioners whom you could all join with on a regular occasions, or they get together on regular occasions and talk about the Dharma, and very rarely have access to a monastic presence. Can be just as useful as anything else. But I mean, quite rightly, what you read through that other comment as being a little bit disturbing, it wouldn't be, I don't think many people would go to such a suggested idea or attend anyway, and you clearly have the wisdom to avoid such things. But I mean, one should be wary of making too many rules and restrictions about the people's freedoms, because there are all kind of wild ideas out there, and let people explore them. We don't convert people. In Buddhism, we don't go out saying, hey, that's wrong, you shouldn't be doing that. We let people find their own way. And the way that we are able to do that with all good conscience is that we live the way the Buddha taught us, and we set an example that hopefully people recognize and see and then follow. And there is no better way than to teach than by example. And the way the Buddha has structured the organization of the Sangha, the ordination of monks and nuns, the way we live with our teachers for a certain length of time, how we are to practice, and there's so many rules in our code of conduct, the Vinaya, it is such that we can only live that way, which is a good example to all others, whether they be practitioners of Buddhism, meditation, or not. They could be other religions, but they will always see, as I said earlier, that the Dharma by no way, in comparison to other religions, suffers. It's always there as a guiding light for a way of life for all people of whatever religion or nationality or anything. So that's so. Someone's not getting subtitles for the video. Okay, so that's YouTube do that, or something does that automatically. Just wait a couple of days and the subtitles will come up if they normally do. If they've never come up, then they probably don't do it in your language, because I don't think, for instance, they do them in Sinhalese language, but they do them in Hindi and some other Indian continent languages. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't happen straight away. Like that making of chapters, it happens with time. I don't watch the videos again, so I don't know, and I haven't really had occasion to go back and do much study of this. You'll know more about it than me probably, but just go back again, and I'm sure they'll appear later. Right. I think I'll leave that question for another time, because frankly I don't understand it. Please share your experience and survival skills if you meet bad animals in wild, and how to deal with them skillfully and protect these animals and environments. So, metta, karuna, upekkha, or mudita and upekkha. The four Brahma Viharas: metta, loving kindness; karuna, compassion; mudita, joy for others; and upekkha is equanimity, unwavering from our focus of attention on what we're doing and not getting all flustered and panicked. So this isn't a channel like a Bear Grylls kind of survival in the jungle talk type of video thing. It is in fact what I've been doing for many years, but without having to talk about it. It's just a case of just living very simply, and also being invisible as best you can within your environment. Not invisible so that just you're not seen, but not seen much. But when you move around, when you move into a different place, when you leave a place, you either leave it exactly as you found it or better. So if you move into an empty building like this and it was dirty, when you move out, you leave it clean. If you move into live under a tree for a week or so, then you'll brush the leaves back over as if nobody had ever lived there when you leave. As far as wild animals are concerned, well, I don't think I've been close to tigers, although I've been told there've been some around, but I've never really seen one. But I've found that generally speaking, most, even snakes, but even domestic, well not domestic, but wild animals you might be used to in towns, like rats, for instance, and foxes, they all keep out of your way. They're never going to bother you unless you bother them. So you practice metta, loving kindness for all beings. If you're harmless and you're keeping the precepts, then you're not harming. You can sum up all the precepts by doing no harm. And if you're doing no harm, nothing will generally want to harm you, except perhaps a tiger that might be hungry and might fancy the taste of you. But as I say, that isn't part of my experience. But I think also they will leave humans alone, generally speaking, because there are plenty of other less troublesome things on the menu out there in the forest. So I have snakes here. Again, you walk carefully, you don't tread on them. And in turn, you're protecting the environment around you. So don't think about it too much. I mean, these are the survival skills. We need very little to live. We can live a very simple life. In this environment or in any environment, you can keep it the simpler, the better. And that's about all I can share with it. I mean, in fact, really, the Vinaya Pitaka, the rules of conduct for monks and nuns, gives us the detailed way to live in any environment, whether it be a city, a modern city, or a jungle full of wild animals, and helps us be protected from both of those equally disturbing scenarios. And that is all summed up in living in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path. If you live in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path, you have right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right meditation. In other words, sila, moral virtue, samadhi, meditation, and panya, wisdom. Then you will be living in a way that you are living harmlessly. You need very little. You're content, happy, and you won't disturb others around you, whether they be human or otherwise. And that is the way to survive in any environment. And I can say from experience, you're saying, could I share from my experience, that is the case. I'm still alive just about today, and I've been living like this now in all kinds of strange environments, but not in a proper house, for over 10 years now. So it's fair to say that I haven't suffered as a result of that in whatever conditions that I faced. Please instruct me step by step in specific. Is that from the same, similarly worded? Yes, it is. Please instruct me step by step in a specific way, by language and image, how to practice Dhutanga, and mind and action and reason after these steps. So there are Dhutanga are the more ascetic practices of which there are 13 allowed. The Buddha allows 13 Dhutanga practices. He steers his monastics away from overly ascetic practices, like standing on one leg, naked, for 10 years, eating 1 grain of rice a day, and all of these weird and wonderful things that he experimented with and found were useless towards attainment. And discovering the middle path gave us a very detailed way to practice, as I've just mentioned, following the Noble Eightfold Path, really. But in our rules, in our Vinaya Pitaka, we have as monks, as the Sangha and nuns, specific rules, codes of conduct, or ways to live to support our core precepts and holy life. And outside of that, or within that, contained within that, but additional ascetic practice we can take on board, are the 13 Dhutanga practices, which aren't really that necessary for lay people to understand. You might be mixing up with going on Tudong, which is the Thai adaptation of the word Dhutanga, and I think you relate it to a video where I'm talking about my own Dhutanga practice, where I am living outside. So one of the Dhutanga practices is living outside under a tree, or living in an empty building, or living in a cave. Eating only 1 meal a day is another. Just eating the once. So once you've had your food offered into your bowl, accepting no food thereafter is another. These are the actual practices, Dhutanga practices I continue and have continue to practice. Only 1 set of robes, so I only have these 3 pieces of cloth: lower robe, upper robe and outer robe. And those are the Dhutanga practices. So that's all I can't step by step go through them and give you images, that I don't have such facilities. But if you Google Dhutanga, 13 Dhutanga practices, it lists them. As for the reasons why, is there are additional supports to renunciation, to quelling our desires, reducing craving, reducing unwholesome desires, that is, and therefore alleviating us from a lot of the suffering caused by that, and eventually eradicating greed, eradicating hatred, aversion, and through that helping us see clearly, and therefore eradicating ignorance or delusion. Delusion mainly, lobha, because ignorance, avijja, is more thinking brain-based, intellect, knowing and understanding how, through the realization of anicca, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, anatta, not self, understanding that is the opposite of avijja. Vijja is knowledge, knowing. Avijja is without knowledge, ignorance. It's the elimination of ignorance. But that doesn't mean just that intellectual knowledge. If we don't know how to put it into practice, it doesn't mean that we don't still have delusion, which is a confusion as to how to practice. So by experiencing through the understanding of that, by practicing keeping moral precepts, practicing meditation, and developing wisdom of that nature, holistically following the Noble Eightfold Path, we come to see that clearly. We see clearly, which is the meaning of vipassana, that they call some sort of insight meditation ideas people have as a practice, but really it's the quality we develop through that practice of seeing clearly the nature of our defilements and the impermanent unsatisfactoriness and how everything is out of our control of this existence, the three characteristics of existence. So that is what you should be practicing, not necessarily as a lay person the Dhutanga practices. But as it comes in connection with that other one, about the animals, I think you're probably looking for videos on how to survive in the jungle. I'm not teaching that. I'm teaching you how to be a good Buddhist practitioner. And if you want to ordain and become a Buddhist monk and live in the forest, then you go to a country where that occurs and ordain as a Buddhist monk, and you will have to live in the forest and you will learn that way. But I don't sort of do videos of how to survive in the jungle, because that's just part of renunciation. It goes with the territory. Isn't a necessary part of being a Buddhist practitioner though. Can anyone donate an umbrella or a waterproof poncho so our English Buddhist monk can keep their robes dry? Well, thank you. So we wouldn't be allowed to wear a waterproof poncho because we shouldn't, in accordance with our practice and our rules, we only wear these robes, and additional garments externally would be disrespectful to these robes when we're going on Pindapata, which is when, if it's raining, I don't go out. I don't go out anyway, unless unnecessarily, other than to meditate outside, but usually it's too hot and too sunny. So in the morning when I go on Pindapata, there's some umbrellas you see hanging up there. They have monk-coloured orange umbrellas here in Sri Lanka, and they get very well, often freely donated to monks all over Sri Lanka, because we use them both for the rain, which it rains a lot when it rains, very heavy rain, and also from the sun. So we use them all year round. So I always usually have my umbrella with me to shade me from the sun or shade me from the rain. The reason I get wet is either when it's very hot, because you sweat so much on Pindapata, or when it's raining, it's very heavy, and the rain and the wind comes from all directions. I have to cross the Bentota River, which must be, I should say, it's probably going to be getting on for 500 metres wide, half a kilometre wide. There are two bridges. When I'm on Pindapata, I walk over one bridge. There's there's four bridges, if you like, because they're a road bridge and a railway bridge, and an old bridge which used to be both, and the old one is now redundant. And both the road bridge and the railway bridge go over the river to an island, which they may have made, I don't know, or whether it was already there, or whether it was made for the bridges, and then continue as a second part of another bridge, or two bridges. So there's a pair of bridges to an island, and then another pair of bridges to the other side of the river. So when I walk across this river, when it starts, sometimes it begins to rain, you can be halfway across, and there's still, a couple of 100 metres to go. And the wind howls along the river from one direction or another, as does the rain, from all directions. So your umbrella, fortunately, they're often donated, so I have a few hanging out there in varying stages of repair or disrepair, because they get blown inside out and collapse, and short of sitting and waiting it out on one side or the other if you need to cross, you've no alternative other than to get wet. And if you're halfway across, of course, and your umbrella's gone inside out, and also it's rain from all directions, it really doesn't matter. I hang them over. I've got pieces of string, drying cord, hanging around my kuti, so that when the fan's on and moving the air around, circulating, they can dry, if possible, that way. But thank you for your kind thoughts and your offer there. And anyone can donate. There's a link on the channel description page, for any other of these requisites that are required, which I think and hope makes it quite simple these days. I'm wondering about time, how long I've been speaking for, but I'll answer this, although this one I think goes with another question. I'll answer those as a pair, like I did those before. Okay. I was listening to a Dharma talk and they said hindrances just appear out of our control. And then you go on to say, I meant to say how this is so. Thank you. So the hindrances, the 5 hindrances are sensual desire, ill will, restlessness, not restlessness, laziness. They say sloth and torpor in the usual translation, but it just means tiredness, laziness, lethargy. This is usually attributed to meditation, when we're sitting in meditation. So what obstacles, hindrances are obstacles, they get in the way. And there are usually, well, there are 5, not usually. These are very specific, these lists, and they're very good, that they're unquestionable. So these 5 hindrances are sensual desire, wanting something, ill will, not wanting something, or aversion, so liking or not liking. Then laziness, call it that. Restlessness and worry, which is usually, oh, I can't sit still, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that. It is usually thinking about the past or thinking about the future and not being in the present moment, here and now. That's restlessness and worry. And finally, doubt. And that is doubting that your practice is getting you anywhere, doubting the idea behind it, the Dharma. This can be easily eradicated by an understanding of the Dharma, by understanding, reading the suttas, listening to Dharma talks, and this will eradicate doubt. So that's the lesser of the 5 evils there. Tiredness can be alleviated by sleep, restlessness and worry. Restlessness and worry, one should practice to be in the present moment, here and now. And the way we do that is by using a meditation object which is present here and now and not anywhere else. The breath is just that. It's always in the present moment. When you breathe in, it's happening now. When you breathe out, it is happening now. Where is it happening? Within your body. It cannot be more present here, and it cannot be more now. So it is the ideal meditation object for that purpose of being in the moment, present, here and now. Now, in relation to your question, you heard a Dharma talk the other day. Well, without hearing the context, I can't really comment. I don't know what the contents of that Dharma talk was. Said the hindrances just appear, well, and they're out of our control. Everything is out of our control. We cannot even control our own minds. Now, these hindrances are more often than not mind-born. They can be external. There may be pleasant smells of food that may make your attention go to wanting food. There may be pleasant sounds of music that may go towards your mind towards listening to music or even humming a tune in your head or something like that. Or it could be an unpleasant smell you want to get away from, an unpleasant sound that's disturbing your meditation, so aversion. It could be that you're tired, you need more sleep, so that's why you're tired. So these are physical, external, through the senses of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching, stimulants to these hindrances, these obstacles to meditation. But more often than not, they're mind-born, and I think they're probably referring to these appearing from nowhere and out of our control. How suddenly you can be meditating and the thought of this comes up or the thought of that comes up. Well, you cannot control that, no, and this will happen. But with practice, with training, with keeping your attention on the mind, the meditation object, developing mindfulness, you will be better skilled at not letting that thought carry you away to another and then to another and then to another with a chain of linked thoughts. But you'll be able to see this as thinking about the future or thinking about the past. See this as wanting something nice, or see this as not wanting something you don't like, or see it as just not being confident that this is helping you achieve happiness, sitting still here at this present moment in time, having doubts about the practice. When you see this through the practice over and over again, repeatedly recognizing it and coming back to your meditation object, you become better skilled at redirecting your conscious awareness back to the meditation object and staying focused on that, enabling you then to become able to develop samadhi or jhana, develop into stages of deep absorbed meditation where you are secluded from these 5 hindrances. Now, these 5 hindrances don't just apply to meditation practice, they apply to all we are trying to achieve in life. So it's useful to understand them throughout, with mindfulness, throughout all of your daily activities of body, speech and mind. Seeing how hindrances are affecting your decisions and directions you take in life. Seeing how they are destructive rather than constructive to your achievements. Seeing how they lead to unsuccessful results rather than success. But where better identified than sitting still whilst trying to develop samadhi in meditation, they can be seen very clearly. This is insight meditation, this is vipassana meditation. Seeing how those hindrances arise, seeing how they affect your meditation and tempt you off that path, direct your conscious awareness elsewhere, distract you from what you're trying to achieve, which is focused attention on your meditation object. I'm really trying not to allow this distraction here to make holes in anything with those needly nails and teeth. She's behaving differently recently because she's getting a little territorial and jealous of the kittens that have appeared from, as if from nowhere. As if, and like the hindrances appear as if from nowhere. So I see where they're coming from in the comment. I can understand that comment, but out of context, I can't really comment. Other than to say we should know the hindrances and know how they affect us. And then we have ways of dealing with them. So antidotes. So the antidotes to sensual desire is we can use the subha practices, seeing the unbeautiful nature of things. The antidote to ill will is loving kindness, metta. Not necessarily this practice of metta, which kind of often is a repetitive rotation of speech, you know, loving kindness, spreading it to myself, to the people next to me, to the people further away, just saying it, but actually having loving kindness. For example, the cat coming in as a hindrance, wanting to disturb me, say I was meditating there. By having metta, loving kindness towards the cat because it just wants to play, you don't then develop aversion towards the effect it's having on you. So these are antidotes that we learn through our regular practice to develop to be free from these hindrances. But ultimately, when we can use these antidotes and then fight restlessness and worry, knowing it's thinking about the future or worrying about the past, or thinking about the past and worrying about the future, regrets of things you've done in the past, worrying about the future, knowing through wisdom, whatever you've done in the past cannot be undone. Forget about it, it's happened. What's going to happen in the future might not happen. You haven't got there yet. All that's relevant is the moment here and now. Knowing this frees you from finally that 5th hindrance of doubt. So you're able to then practice free from these hindrances, or freer from these hindrances, in order to develop jhanas and be fully secluded from them. Deep absorbed meditation, the first jhana, samadhi, is seclusion from the hindrances. Then they will not just arise and are not out of your control because you are secluded from them by your ability to become absorbed in your meditation object. And this comes with practice. And with that note, I shall leave it with hopefully something useful you can use, and hopefully nothing too disturbing for anybody, but but encouraging in your practice. And if it's useful, use it. If not, just forget about it. Let it go. Don't worry about it. Certainly don't let anything disturb you. But enjoy your practice and share, if you can, share it with others. And until next time, be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.